الفاتحة. So last time we stopped at the last thing that we talked about was the part where Sufyan al-Thawri rahimahullah was talking about describing the types of people, and that there's the mustaqbirun and there's the ghafilun, and the difference between them, and the qanitun. I have a feeling like we skipped a section. That's why I'm pausing for a second. Maybe we might have skipped a good deal of this actually. So we'll just have to retract back just in case.
I think last time we talked about the night prayer.
The night prayer, yeah. We'll go from here, and then somebody will have to just tell me if we. I'll have to go through and just make sure that I did skip a section. But today we'll just continue from last time, inshallah. And if we skipped it, we'll go back and cover that section we skipped next time, inshallah. So, يقول المؤلف أبو حامد الغزالي رحمه الله ونفعنا الله به وإياكم في الدارين آمين. Before we begin with him, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم. اللهم إني أعوذ بك أن أضل أو أضل أو أزل أو أزل أو أظلم أو أظلم أو أجهل أو يجهل علي. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا وانفعنا وزدنا علما واجعل هذا العلم حجة لنا ولا حجة علينا. Alhamdulillah. So Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali starts the next council in which he says, أيها الولد, O dear, O son, روي في وصايا لقمان الحكيم لابنه. So it's been related in the counsels of Luqman the wise for his son, أنه قال, so he said to him, يا بني لا يكونن الديك أكيس منك لا يكونن الديك أكيس منك ينادي بالأسحار. So Luqman said to his son, son, don't let the rooster be more intelligent than you, calling in the early morning hours. وأنت نائم, while you're asleep. ولقد أحسن من قال شعرا, and then he relates 3 lines of poetry. لقد هتفت في جنح ليل حمامة على فنن وهنا وإني لنائم. كذبت وبيت الله لو كنت عاشقا لما سبقتني بالبكاء الحمائم. وأزعم أني هائم ذو صبابة لربي فلا أبكي وتبكي البهائم. So this is actually flipped around. The original lines of this actually come from Qais, Majnun Layla, and Qais was lamenting Layla, his beloved, the one he couldn't get to. And these lines were actually taken and adapted by people of Allah to make it about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because when you fall in love with a woman or with a man, you're actually falling in love with a manifestation of the divine attributes. If it's a man, it's a manifestation of the majestic. And if it's a woman, it's a manifestation of the beautiful. The names of Allah can be divided into 2 sections. The names of beauty and the names of majesty, which are the masculine and the feminine kind of attributes that you see in the world and creation. We've created things in pairs. Now the intelligent one will see in the manifestation of their beloved attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala coming about, because everything is supposed to be a sign pointing you towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you see something that is beautiful, your response, you should train yourself to have a response of Subhanallah, Tabarakallahu ahsanul khaliqeen. That this is a manifestation of Allah's power, Allah's qudra, Allah's magnificent creative power in the world. So what happened with Qais is he was blinded by that. This is the thing about Allah's creative power. It can blind you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's the veil that blinds you from seeing what actually this is pointing to. So instead of looking, imagine someone pointing at the moon with their finger, and their finger is adorned. First of all, the finger has a lot of henna, and it's all really beautiful designs, and it has all this jewelry, and it's just a beautiful kind of setting, and the hand itself has some sort of ornaments on it, and so you become distracted by the ornaments, become distracted by the finger. The moon is much more magnificent than the finger, but you get lost, and that's really the nature of this dunya. And that's what Jibreel was worried about. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created paradise and created hellfire, He sent Jibreel to check it out. He came back and he said, I don't think anyone would ever want to go to hell, and I don't think anyone would ever not want to get into heaven. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the makarih, He put the things that are disliked for people around heaven, and He put the things that are adornments around hell, Jibreel was concerned. He said, people are going to be tricked this way. They're going to fall into that. But Allah sent us guidance so that we're not tricked. So what would happen with us is that we have to fight our egos. Allah's not tricking us. There's no game being played here. The test for you is to overcome your ego. So Qais, he got blinded by Layla. What he should have really seen was, this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is manifesting His beautiful attributes. And that's what happened with Hafiz. Hafiz was really, Hafiz al-Shirazi, he was really taken by a beautiful woman. And he wanted to really get with her. He wanted to marry her. But he was a peasant. He was a poor person. She was like a princess, really rich. So he went and he asked the Sheikh, and he said, I want a dua, I want something so that I can have my dua accepted, so that I can be with this woman. And Hafiz got given, he said, go to this maqam of the wali, a saint, a friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, pray there for 40 nights, don't sleep, just do tahajjud for 40 nights straight. And it's a task that nobody's been able to do. And so Hafiz, because of his love for this woman, he did it for 40 nights. And before he did that, he was composing poetry in love of her. And his poetry became famous in Shiraz, and they started to sing it. It was just beautiful poetry in praise of this woman. And he prayed for 40 nights. And at the end of the 40th night, he managed to stay up the whole time. Jibreel came down to him. And he said, what do you want? But Jibreel didn't come down in any shape or form. He came down in a majestic, beautiful form that really got taken by Hafiz. And Hafiz said, what is this? No, messenger of Allah, I'm coming here to answer your call. What do you want? I want the one who sent you. Allah. And that's all the poetry you read about Hafiz. It's all about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The foolish one thinks that it's about some woman. The foolish one is the one who takes Rumi and misappropriates it and sends it off to their girlfriends and boyfriends. They're not talking about that. They're talking about something much more magnificent. So these lines were actually taken by Imam Ghazali from somebody else who adapted these lines from Qais. And the lines say, لَقَدْ هَتَفَتْ فِي جُنْحِ لَيْلٍ حَمَامَةٌ. So in a part of the night, a pigeon called out, عَلَى فَنَنٍ وَهْنًا وَإِنِّي لَنَائِمٌ. On a straight branch that's weak, and certainly I'm asleep. The next line is فقلت in قيس فقلت اعتذارا عند ذاك وإنني لنفسي فيما قد أتيت للائم. And then I said as an excuse for myself at that point, and I'm looking at myself and I'm blaming myself for being in that state, in a state of sleep, while a pigeon is calling out in the night. وأزعم أني هائم ذو صبابة. And I claim that I'm in love with an intense burning desire and yearning لربي, for my Lord. فلا أبكي وتبكي البهائم. Meanwhile, I don't actually weep. If you're really yearning and you're wanting to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that should move you emotionally. But he's saying, I'm not moved. I'm claiming claims. I'm saying things, but I'm not. Meanwhile, look at these animals and the pigeons, and they're calling. كذبت وبيت الله لو كنت عاشقا. So he says, you liar. I swear by the house of Allah, if you really are in this intense love, لما سبقتني بالبكاء الحمائم. These pigeons wouldn't have beat me to calling out in the middle of the night. If that's your state. The reason you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ikhlas for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, true sincere yearning for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the highest station that you can get is that it's not really about heaven and hell and fleeing and yearning for things. You're not worshipping Allah because Allah is a dispenser of pleasures. You're worshipping Allah because of Allah, regardless. That's not to dismiss that Allah uses enticements in the Quran. He uses things to get us to worship Him, heaven and rewards and things like that. These things are intertwined, they come back and forth. But really, the highest thing we should all be striving for is that we do things for Allah because of Allah. أيها الولد خلاصة العلم أن تعلم أن الطاعة والعبادة ما هي. He says, O son, the summary, the gist of all knowledge, al-ilm, all of knowledge, the summary of it, is that you understand and know what ta'a, so translated loosely, we would say obedience, wal-ibadatu, worship, ma hiya, what is it? Now, if you think about ta'a, people think it's just about Allah's commands and prohibitions. You just obey and listen and just not argue. And worship is that I pray and I fast and I do these things. Ta'a, if you look into the Arabic language, the dictionary, like Muhit, for example, just looking at what the meaning of the word ta'a means. It's used, for example, to say for trees, ata'a shajar, when the tree bears fruit, you say that the tree has the ta'a. It's borne fruit. It's given something out. There's a product that is more than just obedience. There's a fruition of something. That's what we call in English erudition. That you study, you get knowledge, you could be a knowledgeable person. But if that knowledge doesn't transform your being and your behavior and the way that you are, that is going to be knowledge that is proof against you, not knowledge that is actually beneficial for you. So it has to transform you. And an erudite person is a person who's been transformed by their knowledge, whereby they take knowledge not to debate and argue and win points and take jabs at people and do that. You're taking that knowledge and you're trying to practice it and enact it, not just in physical form, but also in your heart. It's a transformation of the heart. And ibadah, when you say abad al-tariq, so you take a road that is treacherous. It hasn't been really evened out. It's like a trail that's not really ready. And it's got ups and downs and potholes and things like that. And you say someone has come and they abad al-tariq, it means that they fixed it. And they made it really nice and smooth and it's easy to drive on. So ibadah, worship, is to take yourself, which is all treacherous, which is all ups and downs and unruly, and you basically fix it and smoothen it out. So your acts of worship, your prayer, your fasting, your zakat, all of these things, if you remember Allah 5 times a day, that is a check back. Every couple of hours you're coming back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is supposed to transform the way you interact with everyone else. Because Allah is reminding you who's most important. The beloved sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, if you want to know where you stand with Allah, look where Allah stands with you. Can't remember if it's a hadith or if it's a saying of the scholars, so I'll have to check on that. But it's a statement that's true. You want to know where you stand with Allah, then look where Allah stands with you. If you are obsessed with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way that is in a healthy way, so you're doing the things that Allah is expecting of you, and all of your behavior is in line with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be pleased with, then that says something about your station with Allah. And obviously this begins with oneself. You don't know what's happening with other people and their intentions and what's going on. That's not for us to determine. That's for us. And even with us, we don't know for sure. We're in the state, as the scholars of Aqidah tell us, you're in the state between hope and fear. You're hopeful that you are saved, and if you are on the right path and you're having a good opinion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then inshallah you'll all be saved that way. But also you're concerned, because you're still alive and you're in dunya and you're subject to tribulation. So that's what ta'a really is about. It's to bear fruit. It's not specifically about the obedience itself per se, where you become a literalist kind of, let me just do and don't do and that's all I care about. Legalistic, hyper-legalism. The law is essential and it is necessary, but it is not sufficient. There are plenty of people who go by the letter of the law who end up in oppressing numerous people. And that usually starts off with your own family. In the name of rights, say with marriage, spouses, in the name of rights, oppression happens. And everybody is trying to go tit for tat. Let me just, what are my rights and what are your rights? In the name of that. Well, that's not, you haven't gotten the point. A marriage that is rooted just on rights and responsibilities, where there is no love there, that is a marriage that's doomed. So that's hyper-legalism. That's like the base, bare minimum. You just know where you stand. And a sign of a fruit being borne out is that you know what your responsibilities are, but you don't really concern yourself too much with your rights. And I say that more to the men than to the sisters, because that's usually a male problem. You don't really know what your rights are, but you know what your responsibilities are. And your responsibility is to be a khadim, to be a servant. Because Allah tells you that you are standing up in service. It's different, it's a different perspective. That's bearing fruit of the ta'ah. And every time you get back to Allah, you know that no matter how pompous and how haughty you get, Allah is greater than you. That's bearing fruit of it, that's taqwa. And then you have taqwa, istawsu bin nisa'i khayra, that take care of the women. The Prophet ﷺ, when he said towards the end of his life, when you reflect on the last moments of the beloved ﷺ's time on earth, I mean, imagine your last moments. You're on your deathbed. You know you're about to die. And you only have a few breaths left. What are you going to talk about? It's going to be the most crucial, important things that you're going to give counsel to. And what did the beloved ﷺ say? As-salah, as-salah, wa ma malakat aymanukum. Prayer, and that which your right hand possesses, referring to your family. That is the most important thing. In his khutbatul wada', his farewell sermon, in Hajj, talked about the women. Directing it at the men. He didn't say to the women, take care of the men and make sure that the men are taken care of and cooked for. And then he actually talked to the men. That's bearing fruit of this. اعلم أن الطاعة والعبادة. So Imam Ghazali goes on to say, know that obedience and worship, متابعة الشارع في الأوامر. Mutaba'a is this continuous effort of trying to follow what the lawgiver has stipulated in commandments, والنواهي and prohibitions, بالقول والفعل, in your statements and in your actions. يعني كل ما تقول وتفعل وتترك. As in, everything that you say, everything that you do, everything that you depart from. ويكون باقتداء الشرع. And that is done in following with the law. كما لو صمت يوم العيد وأيام التشريق تكون عاصيا. As in, he gives an example here. If you fast on the day of Eid, or the 3 days following Eid al-Adha, al-Nahr, after Hajj, you'll be in a state of sin. You think you're worshipping, but it's not. It's actually sinful to do that. أو صليت في ثوب مغصوب. Or if you pray in stolen garments. وإن كان صورة عبادة تأثم. Even though it looks like it's an act of worship, but you're in a state of sin. You have to focus on your money. Where is it coming from? It has to be halal. You have to look at your food. It has to be halal. Because these things, your food, you take it, it gets broken down in your body, it gets broken up into elements, and these elements, these micronutrients, they get incorporated. The glycogen gets stored in your muscles, the protein synthesizes amino acids, get synthesized, get to make muscle and to make tissue. Your fat, that goes to make hormones. These hormones starts off with cholesterol, and then it has these different pathways where you get testosterone, estrogen, and all the different hormones that come about. And these hormones are there to give you energy, to give you power. So where did it come from? إِنَّ اللَّهَ طَيِّبٌ وَلَا يَقْبَلُ إِلَّا طَيِّبًا. Allah is pure, and He doesn't accept anything but pure. So if you're wondering, why am I not feeling spiritual, or why am I struggling with this and that? Part of it is ego, yes. But there are ways for you to subdue your ego and make your job a lot easier. And one of those things is that you have to make sure that your energy sources, how you clothe yourself, that roof over your head. People wonder with entering into usurious transactions, and then all of a sudden you find in their families they start having fights and having problems. It's like shaitan is touching you, because that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes usury. So if you have money that's stolen, money that's earned unrightfully, food that you're not concerned with its status, oh, just say Bismillah, as if that works. And then you come back and you wonder, I'm not able to recite Quran, I'm not able to do my adhkar, or when I do them, I'm not really feeling it, I'm not really focused. There are many explanations to that, but one of the core primary issues with that is the source of that wealth and the source of the energy that's making that body of yours. And imagine this, every 7 years, your whole body, all of your cells change. So if you've been feeding your body with haram for a long period of time, it's going to take you 7 years to get rid of the effects. It's just a latifa that I'm just kind of sharing as like a interesting insight into how the human body develops. It might take you 7 years to finally get rid of and wash off your body the impermissible sustenance that you fed it with. So it's something to reflect on. That's how long it might take. Now, you do tawbah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can expunge all of that. Can do it right away. You just have to do it with sincerity and make changes right away. And then you don't have to wait 7 years. Because with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, time doesn't matter. You can flip it in a second. May Allah grant us knowledge and wisdom, and may Allah grant us the ability to follow through with whatever it is that we learn and to actually apply it in our lives. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب